So when you want to learn about the classes, class is a collection of data members. Class is a collection of data members and methods. So what is this? Class is a collection of data members and methods. When you say class, it collects the data as well as the actions what you perform. Let us say I want to gather some information about a student. So when I say student, I am going to collect some data like name of the student, name of the student, name of the student, age of the student, branch of the student. Name, age, branch. Right. Branch, phone number. This is the data about a student. This is the data about the student. So when you're taking this student, what he can perform? He can eat, he can sleep, he can fight. So what are these? These are the actions what he can perform. So data and actions what he perform. The data we are representing is data what we are using. We are representing using variables. Actions what he is performing, we are representing using methods. So class is a collection of data and the corresponding actions. Class is a collection of data and the corresponding actions. Let us say I have a bank. When you say bank, I'm going to have take some data like name of the bank, your account number, what is the balance you have, which branch it is. Like this, we are collecting the data. So what actions you can perform in the bank? I can perform actions like deposit, withdraw, open an account, cancel account. So what are these? These are the actions what I can perform, and this is the data what I gathered. So class is a collection of data and the actions what you can perform. Let us see. Now I'm going for a movie. When you're going for a movie, I'm gathering the information like name of the movie, hero name, heroine name, director. So this is the data what I'm gathering. So for this movie, what are the actions I can perform? Book tickets, cancel tickets, watch movie, write review. So what are these? These are the actions what you are able to perform. So class is a collection of data and the actions. Class is a collection of data and the actions. Right. So when you are going with a class, actions are represented using methods. Data is represented using variables. If you are writing a syntax, if you are getting a syntax here, syntax of the class, we can give public or global class name, data members, methods. So this is how you create a class. This is how you create a class. So we say either the class as a public class or a global class, class name, data members and methods. First we'll understand what is this public and global. Now let us take this. Now, I am in capital info solution. I am in capital info solution. There are few students. Now let us say in the capital info solution, I have batches. Let us say batch, first batch, batch. So I have all the batches 64 or online 135, whatever it is. So I have a couple of students. Now I defined class as public class Satish. If I define a class as a Satish, if I define the class as a Satish, which is a public, what does it mean? This class can be used by any one of the member in the capital info solution. As a defined, as a defined class Satish within the capital info solution organization, this Satish can be used anywhere within the capital info solution. Now let us say I have my branch, my Pune branch I have. So let us say I have Sastek. Now the students in the Sastek, they cannot communicate with Satish. They cannot use the Satish because Satish is from capital info solution. So only the capital info solution students can communicate with Satish. Only the capital info solution can communicate with the Satish. If we define any class as public within the organization, where you define this class, only within that organization we can use it. Suppose I define one more class, global class. I define a class called global class Satish Myla. If you define a class as a global, it is a global, all the members of capital info solution, they can use this class, as well as outside the capital info solution also they can use. That means even from the SaaS tech, they can use the Satish Myla class. When I define a class as a public, only within the organization they can access it. If I define a class as a global, it can be accessed within the application as well as outside the application. Within the application as well as outside the application. Am I clear with this? Am I clear with this? Any query at this point? Define the class as public, can be accessed only within the if you say class as a global, if you define class as a global, it can be accessed within the class, within the application, or outside the organization. Right. So if you want to define any web services, we define class as global. So this is what we have. Right. Then we are trying to create a class. When you are trying to create a class, the naming convention of the class should be upper camel. Class should be upper camel. Like example program, student wrapper, student line items. So it should be in the upper camera, right? So we are trying to create a class now. First example, create a class with name student. So when you say create a class with the name student, I'm defining it as public class student. Create a class employee class employee. So if I say create a class employee, public class employee. So I told create a class movie, class movie. So I'm creating here public class movie. So this is how we're just creating an empty class here. Then I'm saying create a class employee with following data members. So I want to create a class employee with employee name, experience, salary. So create a class with the following data members: employee name, experience, and salary. So how do you create them now? Create them as public class employee, public string company, public decimal experience, public decimal. Right. So we're going with the next. I'm asking to create next. Create class student with following data members. With following data members. So I want to take student name, branch, I want to take phone number. So when you go with this, I will take public class student, public string student name, public string branch, public string phone. So this is how we created. Next we are creating next example. Next we are trying to take the next example here. Create a class, a movie, data numbers. So I want to take with this following. So I'm going with public class public string public string public string. So like this we have created the classes. So it's a class with only data members. So let us take few examples. Any query on this point till now? Any queries till now? Right. So let me go with it. I want to take a class with the data members and methods. Now it's create a class student with following data members and methods. So I want to create a class with the following data members and methods. Data members like name, branch, phone. I want to take name, branch and phone. I want to take name, branch and phone. Then I told create a method called display. Create a method called display. This method should print all the value data members using system.debug. Now I told create a method called display. Create a method called display. This method should print all the values using system.debug. So first let us create a class. In the class we have public class. Class name is student. The student I asked you to take data members like public string name, public string branch, then we're going with phone number, public string phone. Then I told create a method display. If you don't mention any data type, by default it is void. So public void display, public void display. What I ask you to do? I ask you to display print all the data members using system.debug. So I'm using system.debug. Right. So what I've done? So in the class I have methods with the data types. The total created class with the following data types and a method. Any query on this? Any query on this? So it's a class with a combination of data members and methods. Right. So we are trying to take few more examples here now. We are trying to take few more examples. So it says now I want to take a class called employee. I want to take a class called employee. The following so what we have here, we have data members like employee name, let us say I want to take salary, I want to take experience. Then I have a method here. This method, even I have one more variable here, bonus. This method will display all the data members. So this method should display all the data members. The sixth one, what we have, calculate. There is one more method called calculate. This method should calculate the bonus value. This method should calculate the bonus value. Where what is the rule? If salary is always, if experience is more than 5 years, then 20% of salaries is a bonus. If salaries, if experience is less than 5 years, then 10% of salaries bonus. So this is how we created the class. So I ask you to create a class with the following data members and the data members and methods. So how you define it now? Public class employee, where you are going with public string employee name, public decimal experience. You can also give experience, salary, bonus. Then what I ask you to do? I ask you to create a method called display. In the display method, what I ask you to perform? Print all the values. So you're going to say system.debug employee name, you're just trying to print the values here. System.debug, I'm trying to print salary. What is the salary? What he has. System.debug experience, what he has, and the bonus value, what he has. So like this, I created a display method. Then there is one more method called calculate. What was the logic for that method? I told create a method called calculate. So I was creating a method called calculate. Create a method called calculate. In this method I told if experience is more than 5 years, 20% of the salary is the bonus. So what I have to do now? If experience is greater than 5 years, then I'm saying bonus equal to salary into 20%. Else then I told bonus equal to salary into 10%. This is how I calculated the value of bonus. This is how I calculated the value of bonus. Any query for anyone? So we are trying to take a combo of class with data members and methods. Combo of data members and methods. So this is the data which is common for everyone. The data which I defined about the method is common for everyone. I can use this data within any method defined in the class. I can use the data within any method defined in the class. Am I clear with this? Any queries at this level? Any queries at this level? Am I clear with this? Am I clear with this? Any queries? The non-developers, have you followed that? Right. Okay. So let me go back. So everyone has joined. A lot of people have missed out. So let me go with the next one. I'm trying to take one more example here. Create a class bank. Create a class bank with the following. Yes, if you say void, don't return any value. If you don't like to return any value, you will take it as void. Void indicates null. If you don't want to return any value, you will take it as void. In the above operation, we are calculating the value, but I'm not returning any value to anyone. So I have taken it as void. So I have a code number and I have balance. Balance. So we have a method called deposit. So what is this method will take the amount which user want to deposit as input parameter and add this value to balance. So the balance method you're trying to pass the value what you want to deposit. Similarly, we have withdraw. The same above context. This method will take amount which user want to withdraw and remove the value from the balance. Remove the value from the balance. So what is this in this context again? It is the same. We will take public phone number, public small balance, public set. So this this I asked you to create as a method, right? So public void deposit. He asked you to take amount as parameter. So decimal amount. So where I was taking balance equal to balance plus amount, and I want to print the value. Instead of debug, new balance is you want to print the balance file. The same thing, what you want to do, withdraw. So understand what is the requirement of the class, what are the data members in the class, perform the logic, what is specified, and create the class. Any variable is lower camel. Any variable is lower camel. Balance minus amount system.debug balance. So this is how we created a classes. So now we have seen a couple of classes, how to create a class, with the corresponding data members and the actions what we want to perform. So this is how we are defining the classes. So let's go to the extension of this topic. Defining a constructor within a class. Defining a constructor within a class. What is the purpose of a constructor and why we use this constructor? Any queries up to now? Anyone has any queries up to now? Right. Then let us go with the defining a constructor within a class. So first, I'll give the first point here. Now, if you give class is just class's name. We just started with the class name. So we have taken class name. So this is how we created a class. When I created a class, public class name. Public class name. If you create a method with the same name of a class, we call it as constructor. So the first point here to discuss, method. If we create a method with the same name of the class, we call it as constructor. The second point says method. This method should not have, or constructor should not have any return type. Constructor should not have any return type. First, let us understand these 2 points, then we'll expand the topic. So here, first example I was taking, create a class student with constructor. So if I ask you to create a class with a constructor, public class student. So the constructor also will have the same name like class name. So what is that? Student. So if you create a method in the class with the same name like class name, then we call it as constructor. Here there will be no return type like void, integer, decimal. No return type will be there. There is no return type. So let me take one more example. Create a class student. Okay, let us say employee with constructor. In that case, how we write it? Public class employee, public employee, so you are taking the next point here. Let me complete it. I'll come back to that point. So let me complete it step by step. Okay. So create a class bank with constructor. So in that case, I'm going with public class employee. So constructor is going to be, so I told you to create a bank, right? Sorry for that. Bank. Okay. So we have created this. The next, I want to take a constructor with the parameters. Create a class student with constructor which takes name as parameter. Which takes name as parameter. So when I say it should have a parameter, that is going to be class student public student. I told take parameter. I told you to take name as a parameter. So I'm passing one parameter here. Then I was create a class employee with a constructor which has experience and salary as parameter. So in this case we have public class employee. So let me take this. I'm taking here salary, so decimal salary and decimal experience. So that's how we created. Now we understood how to create a constructor. Now what is the purpose of this constructor and where we use it? Let us see this. What is the use of this constructor and why you go for it? So first let us understand the syntax, then we'll go for what is the purpose. Okay. Then now I told what is the purpose of this constructor. Basically, constructor is used to assign, initialize the values for the data members. So what is the purpose of a constructor now? The third point of the constructor, it is used initialize the values used to initialize the values by the data members of the class. It is used to initialize the data members of the class. So what is the purpose of the constructor? Let us see here. So I'm creating here, create a class student with following data. So I want class student with the name of the student, age of the student, name of the student, age of the student, branch of the student. Now I am asking to create a constructor. When I am asking to create a constructor. So in the constructor, what I am asking you to do, initialize values for the so when I say initialize. So first let me explain why should we initialize. So public class student, I'm giving here public string name. Now I have not assigned any value to the name. As you have not assigned any value to the name, it is going to store null. So what is the value of the name now? Value of the name is null. What is the value of the age here? Null. Then I'm creating string branch. What is the value of the branch? Null. As you have not assigned any value, we didn't give any values to this. We didn't tell what is the starting value of name, what is the initial value of age, what is the initial value of branch. We have not initialized the values. As we have not initialized the values, name contains null, age contains null, branch contains null. So the values in the name, age and branch are null. But I don't want null, I want to assign some values to them. Then I will use constructor. Constructor is used to assign some values to initial values to the data members. So here I am saying name equal to Satish. So we have assigned some values to the data members. So basically when you created a data members, there are no values assigned to it. So what we are doing, using the constructor, we are trying to assign the values to the data members of the class. Using the constructor, we are trying to assign the values to the data members of the class. So every object you want to create, if you want to take some starting values, we'll go for this. See, now if you don't assign the values, you'll have a null. Now with a null, you cannot make any logic, right? Now you have a null values for the name. When you have a null value for the name, so what is the operation that you can perform? When I say I have a null value, what is the logic you want to perform on it? When there is no data in that, there is no logic that you can perform. Am I right? So before you implement any logic, we have to specify what is the value in that. When I say depositor, if you don't give me the balance value, how would I know the balance? If you don't give me the account number, how would I check your account number is correct or not? If you don't give me the date of birth, how could I check your date of birth is right or not? If you don't give me your experience, how could I check your how can I calculate your bonus? Right? So if you want to perform a function, see boss, in the function you are giving a account number, but you are comparing this account number with what? In the method you are giving, if every value the user is giving, then what is the use of writing a program? He can straight away do the values, right? So there is some data which is available with us. With respect to this data, based on whatever the inputs he is giving, we want to calculate. Now, as a bank, I have your balance value. When you give me what is the amount you want to deposit, when you give me your account number, then what I will do? The account number what you provided is correct or not, I will verify. How would I verify your account number is correct or not? I should have your account number, right? That you will not be giving me. You will give one account number. Based on the account number what you provide, I cannot deposit. Before I deposit, I have to compare what you gave is correct or not. When I can compare what you have given is correct or not, when I have a copy of it. Okay. It's not a specific to this requirement or that requirement. Let us move forward. Let us move forward. Okay. Did you get my point, Manish? Yes. Go ahead.
Sir, I want you to iterate over that initialization because I think it is not quite clear. Here, what we have done is age is 30. 30 is the initial value which is assigned to that age.
Yes. Yes.
So whenever, whatever the methods we write, we are gonna make any changes to that value, but the initial value will be 30 of it. Is
Exactly.
it the only meaning of that?
Exactly. Exactly. See, you are specifying the starting values. Later on, when I say
Okay.
initialization, you are assigning the value. It can be zero also. You can be zero.
Yeah.
Later on, based on
Yeah.
your requirement, you can make changes on it.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
also,
Got it.
it is not necessary that you have to initialize every value. Okay, the data whose value we require before we perform the operation, that values we need to initialize. So which value we require, that depends upon the scenario what you are taking. We cannot make a global statement saying that all the values should be initialized. We cannot make a statement that all the values should not be initialized. So the assignment of value depends upon the requirement. Requirement to requirement, the concept will change. Okay.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
So this will understand once I create an object. Now the point here is I am making you to understand the syntax format of writing it. So once we get down to the objects, you'll be knowing it. Okay. So right. So go back to this. Let me create here also. So someone has asked me, Apurva, is that was clear for you? You also ask the same query, right? Is that was clear for you? Apurva and Kavita, is that was clear for you? Why we use a constructor? Any further queries? Apurva, is that was clear from your end? Okay. And people who are taking the repetition of these, so do not pull the topic apart from the apart from what you're discussing. We are at the basics. Let others not deviated from the topic. So you can get the query cleared when you get out of the classes, right? People who are taking the repetition, don't pull the topic away from this. Away from this. Once you get out of the classes, you can understand what is that. Okay. Let us not discuss objects at this level. Let me complete till I come to the objects. Don't discuss anything about the object. Okay. So that others will not get disturbed or they won't be puzzled. Okay. Okay. Now let us take the next point here. So create a class employee with following data. Employee name, salary, bonus. Now experience. Now look at this context. Now in this class, now I'm going to create constructor. Now I'm asking you to create a constructor, employee. Now I'm asking you to create a constructor with employee name, salary, and experience. So this is with the parameter. So in the constructor, you are passing employee name, salary, experience. Okay, you are passing the values of name, salary, and employee experience. You are passing 3 values. So whatever the values you are passing, these values I am assigning to the data members. These values I am assigning to the data members. Now sixth, I have calculate bonus. Calculate. So this method calculate the bonus. Bonus where bonus is 10% off. Now look at this requirement. Now with respect to your query Pankaj and with respect to your query Manish, so look at this point. Employee, we have employee public string empty public, let us say decimal. I'll take only these 3 parameters now. I don't like to take experience anymore. Okay. Now decimal salary. Now we have public employee. Chimney. Decimal. Now look at this. Now you are passing 2 parameters. When you are calling a constructor, you are passing 2 parameters. Whatever the value you are passing, that I am saving to this. Whatever the value you are passing, that I am saying to this. Now someone has asked me, we can pass the values through a method. If you pass the values through a method like this value can be used only within this method. Outside this method, no one knows what is a name. Outside this method, no one knows what is a salary. Outside the method, no one knows what is a salary. Before I perform the logic, before I start making any logic, first the constructor will execute. So here we are assigning the values. Then here, when I say calculate, if you want to make a calculation of bonus, salary is a mandatory, right? Without salary, you cannot make a calculation. So how did you give the salary? You are assigned the salary using a constructor. You are assigned a salary using a constructor. Now we are saying public void calculate. I'm giving bonus equal to salary into 10%. Unless you have a salary value, you cannot, unless you have a salary value, you cannot calculate. You cannot calculate. So how you are assigning the starting value of salary? There should be some starting value with the salary. So the starting value I am assigning through a constructor. Right. Now you'll understand better now. I'm just going to create an object creation. Once I create an object, you'll understand what this story is all about. Till now, any queries for anyone? Any queries for anyone till now? Right. Now we need to understand there are two types of variables. One is reference variable. Another one is reference variable. Other one is variable. Variable and reference variable. Now let us say. Now I have some data here. Now let us look at this. Is now we have user here. Now is a user. I have one more user here. Try to understand this point. Now this fellow, this person proposes this girl. When this Faraz proposed this girl, Faraz proposed this girl told, okay, accepted. Or this girl told rejected. So straight away she is saying accepted or rejected. So what is that? She is giving the value straight away. 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 Now this is a second scenario. When he was proposing this girl, what this girl told? Instead of giving a reply, she told, go to locker number 102. Go to locker number 102. There is my response. So in that locker number 102, she kept a data called accepted. Now she is what she is saying. Once he proposed, she was giving 102. 102. She was giving go to 102 and find out my response. Now what is the first one? When he proposed, straight away she gave the result. Straight away she said accepted or rejected. In the second scenario, when he proposed, she was giving the location where her response was kept. Now what this Faraz has to do? He has to go to 102 location and find out what is the data that is there. So what is this 102? 102 is reference to the location. Reference to the location where my data was stored. Reference to the location where my data was stored. In the first case, straight away I am giving the data. So reference variable means giving a reference to the reference value where the data is stored. Giving a reference to the location where the value is stored. So if you take primitive variables and a reference variables, look at the point. Integer age equal to 30. I am straight away giving the value. String name equal to 40. I am straight away giving the value. Decimal salary. I'm straight away giving the value. So these are the primitive variables where you are straight away giving the values. When you say reference variable, age contains a value, name contains a value, salary contains a value. When I say reference variable, other than primitive type, all of them are reference. So EMP will not have a value. It will have a reference to the location where value was stored. Student STD doesn't have a value. STD has a reference to the location where we have a value. So this EMP was a reference variable. STD was a reference variable. Other than primitive data types, other than the primitive values, what all the variables you create, all of them are called reference variable. Apart from the primitive variables what you create, rest all the variables are called primitive variables. Did you get my point? Any query at this point? Any query for anyone? Right. Now let us take the next one. Here, try to understand this point. It is important now. I was trying to create public class. Now it's for the purpose of the constructor. You'll understand what is the purpose of the constructor with these statements now. I have taken a constructor here. Within the constructor, what I was giving? Right. I created a class like this. Now, first we have new. When I say new, new is a keyword. New is a keyword which is used to allocate the memory for data members of the class. New is a keyword which is used to allocate the memory for data members of the class. When you say new, memory is allocated. For whom the memory is allocated? Name. When the memory was allocated, what was the value for this? The value is null. Then the memory is allocated here, age. What was the age? Age is a memory which is allocated. When the memory was allocated to the age, it is null. We assume some 400. Then again I have given new. When you say again new, again memory will be allocated. So when the memory is allocated, for whom the memory was allocated? Data members. So name equal to null. Age equal to so right at some location which is allocated. Let us say again I told you. Again when you say new, memory is allocated. So every time you call a new memory will be allocated. A new memory location will be created with data members where the values of those data members is going to be null. So every time you call a new memory location is created. New memory location is created with the data members and their values are going to be null. Okay. Now this is the first part of the story. Look at the point. Now again I am giving here new. Now this time along with the new I am calling a constructor. Along with the new you are calling a constructor. When you call a constructor, so what is happening now? First when you say new, memory is allocated. When the memory is allocated, we are going to have name equal to null, age equal to null. This is how the memory is allocated. Once the memory is allocated, immediately what happened? Constructor is called. When the constructor is called, what is saying? Set name equal to Satish, age equal to 30. What is saying? Once the memory is allocated, immediately constructor is called. Once the memory is allocated, immediately constructor is called. When the constructor is called, they are setting name equal to Satish, age equal to 30. So what is the purpose of the constructor? Once the memory is allocated, the data members will be not having any values in that. The data members will not be having any values in that. In case, if you want to assign any values to the data members, initial values. In case, if you want to give any initial values to the data members, that we define in the constructor. Now let us see. Again I was giving Again I was giving a new. Again I was giving a new student. So when I give a new student here, then again what happens? New means memory is allocated. When the memory is allocated for the data members, memory is allocated where I'm going to have name equal to null, age equal to null. After allocating the memory, then what happened? Constructor is called. When the constructor is called, we are setting was set the initial value of the starting value of name as Satish. It's only starting value. Later on, if you want to modify, modify. But to start the operation, I'm giving the initial value as Satish and 31. Is that was clear for everyone? Is that was clear? Is that was clear, Manish? Right. It was your query, Manish and Apurva and Kavya. Is that was clear for everyone? So constructor was used to assign the initial values. When you assign the memory, they contain the data members with null values. Now, when you are starting, before you start performing your operation, before you start performing any other operation, you want to take some initial values for the data. Those initial values are given within the constructor. Okay. Now, this memory was created. This memory was created. Now, after creating this memory, I want to change the value of name. From Satish, I want to change the value of name to Kumar. Now, initial values you gave name equal to Satish, age equal to 31. But now, I want to change the values. When I want to change the values, how would I recognize where was this memory? You assigned this memory somewhere. I don't know where was it. In the system you assigned this memory somewhere. Where was this memory? I don't know where was this memory. So if I want to modify the values or if I want to refer to this location, how would you refer? How would you refer? Then we have creation of reference variable student S. When I say student S, student S, when I say student S, what does it mean? Boss, create the memory, assign the initial values. After assigning the initial values, give the reference of this location to S. Give the reference of this location to S. So S contains the reference to this location. Now again I'm creating here student S2. Now what does it mean? Create the new, first it will execute new, memory is allocated, initialize the values, starting values are initialized, then store that memory reference in S2. Store that memory reference in S2. So if you want to refer to these values or if you want to modify these values, we will use S2. Using S2, we will refer to the values in the location. Using S2, we will try to modify the values in the S2. If you want to modify the values in this location, we will use S. Using S, we will refer to these values. So, what is this student S and S1? This S is called object. We are calling as object. It's a new instance to the class. It is a new instance to the class. Object is nothing but instance of a new instance of a class. We have created a new instance and we are referring to that instance using a object, which is nothing but a reference variable. Which is nothing but reference variable. When I want to collect the data about 10 students, student 1, one location for Karthik, one location for Satish, one location for Apurva, one location to Pankaj. When I want to collect the data about 4 people, for every person, we are giving one location. In every location, we have name, age, qualification. Location 2, name, age, qualification. Location 3, name, age, qualification. Am I clear with this, boss? Am I clear with this point? Am I clear with this? Any queries at this point? Right. Now, let us come back. So, what is the object now? Object is nothing but reference variable. Object is nothing but reference variable. So when you want to go for an object, first we need to understand new. What is this new? New is a keyword which is used to allocate the memory the data members of the class. Then we have constructor. Right. This will be called only once. Constructor will be called only once. That is at the time of creating a object. Once the object is created, you cannot call a constructor. At the time of creating an object, only constructor will be called. Only one time for an object. At the time of creating a object. Once the object is created, memory is created, immediately constructor is called, value is assigned. You cannot call the constructor again. Only one time for an object. At the time of creating an object, constructor will be called. Later on, you cannot call it. So this will be called after creating the memory by the new keyword, and it will initialize. Then reference variable. This will hold the reference the memory location, hold the reference to the memory location located by keyword. This reference variable is also called object. Right. Am I clear? So let us see the creation of an example. You'll understand what I was trying to convey from last 10 minutes. Now, how do you create a object now? Class name object equal to new. This is how you're creating. So let first we create a example of this. You'll understand. So look at this. File, new, Apex class, student. So let us say example. I am creating a new class. So in this class, so public string name, public teacher each. Now I'm creating a constructor here, public example 1. So here we have, I'm not assigning any values. Just I'm trying to print the values which are there in name and age. Now we have created a class here with the name and age as data members. Within the constructor, I am printing the name and age. Now I want to create an object. So go to the debug log. Now I was trying to create an object here. Right. So how do you create an object here? Class name e1 equal to new class name. I created an object. I just create an object. This is the syntax of creating an object. Now I'm executing this. When I executed this, now go back to this. So what happened? Automatically name and age is called, printed. Why did these two values print? Because constructor is called. Did I invoke? Did I call it manually? Automatically at the time of creating an object, constructor will be invoked. Once the memory is allocated, automatically constructor is invoked. So when is the constructor invoked? If you are creating any object, first memory is allocated, then immediately constructor is invoked. That's how we are getting age equal, okay, name equal to null, age equal to null. Which values are there in the name? Null is there. Which value is there in the age? Null is there. There are no values. Suppose in that case, if you want to assign any starting values, now I want to assign starting values for name. Name I want to take, starting value I want to take. Name starting value I want to take. Satish. You want to take the starting value for a name. Age I don't want to define, I want it to be a null only. So in that case, what you're doing, if you are not assigning any values in the constructor, if you are not assigning any values in the constructor, which values are there in the variables? Null is there. You don't want a value to be a null, you want to be something else. Then assign it. Then assign it. Then what I told? Example e1 equal to new example. When I create again, so it is not saved, boss. Modification is not saved. Let me save it. Let me run it now. So go with this. So what happened? Name equal to Satish Myla. You don't want the name to be null. You want the starting value to be something else. So you have defined. I told let age be anything, no issue. Let age be anything, no issue. Even if it's null, I am not bothered. Then you left it like that. So the values which you don't want to be null, you want something else to be initial value. Then you are going to set it. Now I will say I don't want age to be null. I want age to be 0 initial. I want age to be 0 initial. Then you are assigning age equal to null. So it is up to your choice. If you don't assign any values, it will be null. If you don't want the value to be a null, you want the value to be something else, then you have to initialize it within the constructor. You have to initialize it within the constructor. Why? Because constructor is automatically called once the memory for the data memory is allocated. So if you want any value to be assigned to the data members before they are used, before the data is used by anyone else, before the data is used by anyone else, if you want the any value to be assigned to this, in that case we will use constructor. Constructor is used to assign the initial values to the data members if needed. Constructor is used to initialize the data members, initialize the data members if needed. Right, you can declare, but in that case always it will be same, right? Now what I want to do, I don't want always the name to be Satish. I'm taking mine. In that case what happened? I have a choice. I have a choice now, right? But if you initialize the value like something like name equal to Satish straight away, now it is common for everyone, right? So if you are taking a constructor, if you are taking a constructor, sometimes, okay, in your context I can say like this. I have taken A. So the value of A should be age plus 10. The initial value of A should be age plus 10. Then how will you assign this value? Now the value of A, the starting value of A, I want to take it as whatever the age is there, age plus 10 will be the starting value. Whatever the starting value of age is there, that age value plus 10 is my A value. Then in that case, we cannot initialize straight away, right? Is that was clear? So in that case, there is a reason. If it is a fixed value, if it is a fixed value, if it is a constant value, we can take it. But if you want to make some calculations and assign it, then we'll use constructor. So constructor is used to assign the value. Constructor is used to assign the value. Now the question is, when I told starting value of name, previously I told starting value Satish straight away. But now I am saying my starting value, user will enter whatever the name he is entering, that is my starting value. So when I say initialize the value, it is not depending upon a fixed format. According to the context what you are taking, your way of initialization will change. The initialization process will change, it depends upon your requirement. So constructor is also one of the way to initialize the values. Constructor is also one of the way to initialize the values. Are you getting my point? Suppose if we give age equal to 40, yes, it is accepted. Yes, it is accepted. No need of defining here. It is also accepted. So the process of initialization depends upon your requirement. It will change. Now, according to the requirement, I want the value of age to be 40 for everyone. Sure, you can do it. Right. Now, else, I want the value of age to be given by the user. Whatever the value that user is giving, that is my starting value. I'm asking the user, boss, you only tell me what should be your starting value. I'm telling to the user, you only tell what is the starting value. Then I cannot define it here. I will take from only constructor. So, how the initial values are coming? How the initial values are coming? Are they fixed? Are they calculated? Are they given as inputs? Depends on that. We will choose the process to initialize. Okay, now. Any other queries? Am I clear with this? Any other queries from anyone?